Some days the heaviest thing you carry is not your life, but the constant question of whether other people still approve of you. It is exhausting to live like that. Exhausting to read the room before you read your own heart. Exhausting to replay conversations and search for little changes in tone. Exhausting to wonder if you said too much, asked for too much, felt too much, needed too much. And the strangest part is that from the outside, it can look like you are doing fine. You are thoughtful, careful, kind, responsible, easy to be around. But inside, your peace rises and falls on other people's reactions. A warm response lifts you. A delayed reply sinks you. A look, a pause, a shift in energy, and suddenly your whole inner world feels unsteady. That kind of living can become so normal that you stop noticing how much it costs you. You call it being considerate, you call it being self-aware, you call it wanting harmony. But often, underneath all of that, there is a quieter truth. You have learned to treat validation like emotional oxygen. You have learned to wait for someone else to tell you that you are acceptable before you let yourself relax. So you over-explain, you soften your truth, you become easier to digest. You make yourself more agreeable, more useful, more impressive, more low maintenance, hoping that if you can just get the response right, the smile right, the reassurance right, then maybe you can rest. But your life does not open when they finally approve of you. Your life opens when their approval stops being the thing that decides whether you belong to yourself. Stay with me here, because this is not about becoming cold. It is not about pretending you do not care. It is not about acting superior, detached, or untouchable. It is about something much more honest. It is about noticing how often you abandon yourself in order to feel chosen. It is about seeing that the ache for validation is rarely vanity. It is usually fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being left. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that if you stop performing, pleasing, adapting, and proving, there may be nothing lovable left. That fear can run deep. It can sound like, I just want them to understand me. It can sound like, I only want to feel appreciated. It can sound like, I am not asking for much, but what lives underneath is often more tender than that. It is the part of you that still believes love must be earned through correctness, through usefulness, through emotional management, through getting everything just right. So even when no one asked you to perform, you perform anyway. Even when no one directly rejected you, your body braces for it. Even in ordinary moments, you remain slightly on trial. And that is why one small moment can hurt so much. You are here to live it, not because the moment itself is enormous, but because it touches a wound that was already waiting. A short text, a distracted response, a change in plans, a conversation where you do not feel fully met, and suddenly you are not just dealing with one moment, you are dealing with every old moment that taught you. Approval was safety and disapproval was danger. Your nervous system does not always know the difference between a small social discomfort and a deeper emotional threat. So it reacts fast, it scans, it explains, it adjusts, it tries to earn its way back into calm. But calm, built on someone else's approval, is never really calm. It is suspense. And suspense is not peace, even when it looks very polished. Let me say something clearly. The problem is not that you care what people think. You are human. Of course you care. We are wired for connection. We are touched by tone, belonging, recognition, and warmth. The problem begins when other people's responses become the authority on your worth. The problem begins when your inner life becomes a waiting room, when you cannot settle until someone else confirms that you are okay, when your self-respect gets negotiated every time the room changes temperature. That is when life starts to shrink. You do not speak as freely. You do not choose as clearly. You do not rest as deeply. You do not love as honestly. You become strategic where you long to be sincere. You become watchful where you long to be relaxed. You become impressive where you long to be real. And because this pattern is often rewarded by the world, it can be hard to question. People may praise your sensitivity. They may admire your flexibility. They may call you mature because you can read everyone's needs before they speak. But being skilled at abandoning yourself does not make abandonment less painful. It just makes it harder to notice. So why does this happen? Partly because many people learn very early that connection comes with conditions. Not always dramatic conditions, sometimes very subtle ones. Maybe love was warm when you were easy, quiet, successful, cheerful, helpful, composed, or strong. Maybe approval arrived when you did not make things harder for anyone. Maybe being wanted felt tied to being convenient, or maybe you simply learned that being deeply yourself carried risk, while being pleasing brought relief. A child does not call this adaptation. A child calls it love. A child thinks, this is how I stay close. This is how I stay safe. This is how I keep the room soft around me. And those lessons can survive long after the original room is gone. So now you may be an adult with language, insight, and independence. Yet, one disappointed face can still pull you into old survival. You know, logically, that not everyone's reaction defines you, but your body may still move as if it does. That is why this pattern is not solved by simply telling yourself to care less. Telling yourself to care less when your nervous system is begging for safety is like whispering at a fire alarm. It does not reach the place that is sounding. Something gentler is needed, something steadier, something that helps you come back to yourself before you go chasing the next sign that you are still okay. That is why I want to offer you a simple practice, not a performance plan, not a self-improvement contest, a return. I call it the open hands practice. 3 steps: return, release, receive. Return means you come back to yourself before you run toward their reaction. Release means you stop gripping for certainty that another person cannot reliably give you. Receive means you allow yourself to take in the safety, dignity, and steadiness that do not depend on winning approval. Simple does not mean shallow. These steps are small on purpose because deep change usually happens in ordinary moments, not in grand declarations, not in one perfect breakthrough. It happens in the instant before you send the extra text, in the pause before you explain yourself for the 4th time, in the breath you take when you notice your chest tighten because someone's energy changed, in the brave little choice to stay with your own experience instead of immediately editing it for acceptance. Return is the first step, because without it, you disappear too quickly. Return begins with noticing when you have left yourself. That may sound abstract, but it is often physical before it is emotional. Your stomach tightens, your thoughts speed up, your attention leaves your body and rushes toward the other person. What do they mean? Are they upset? Did I do something wrong? Should I fix it? Should I soften that message? Should I send another one? Should I make this easier? Should I shrink? Should I perform? Return starts right there, not Tur the spiral right there. Try this. The next time you feel yourself reaching for validation, do not correct the feeling. Just name it gently. I am leaving myself right now. I am handing my center away right now. I am waiting for someone else to tell me I am safe. That kind of naming is powerful because it interrupts the trance. It does not shame you. It simply tells the truth. Then come back to the body. Feel your feet, unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders drop 1 inch. Place a hand over your chest or your stomach if that feels natural. Take one slower breath than the moment seems to allow. Not because breathing is magical, but because it gives your body a message. You do not have to run after safety this second. You can stay here. You can stay with you. This matters more than people realize. Because when you cannot return to yourself, every relationship starts to feel like a referendum. Every silence becomes loaded. Every difference feels dangerous. Every boundary feels like exile. But when you can return, even imperfectly, you create a little space between their response and your identity, and that space is where freedom begins. Now I know what you might be thinking. This sounds good in theory, but what about real relationships? What about when someone truly is distant, inconsistent, dismissive, or unclear? Fair question. Returning to yourself does not mean pretending red flags are lanterns. It does not mean spiritualizing confusion. It does not mean calling anxiety intuition every time somebody acts weird at 11:47 p.m. and suddenly becomes a philosopher through text. No, my love. Sometimes mixed signals are just mixed signals, and your nervous system is tired because it keeps trying to turn them into a stable home. That little bit of honesty can be funny because it is painfully familiar. How many hours have been lost trying to decode a message from someone who barely deserves a punctuation mark from your piece? Too many, truly too many. At some point you have to laugh with tenderness at the absurdity of building your whole mood around a person who replied with 2 words and a mysterious period. That is not your soulmate. That is a grammar event. Humor helps because it breaks the spell. It reminds you that not every intense feeling is a sacred truth. Sometimes it is just an old pattern wearing dramatic clothing. Sometimes the mind becomes a detective because the heart feels unsafe. Return helps you see that without making yourself wrong for it. Then comes release. Release is where you loosen your grip on the fantasy that one more explanation, one more performance, one more perfect version of you will finally secure permanent approval. It will not, because approval that must be constantly managed is not safety, it is maintenance, endless maintenance, exhausting maintenance, and you were not born to become the unpaid emotional intern of every room you enter. Release asks a tender question. What am I trying to earn right now that should not need to be earned in this way? Respect, clarity, warmth, reassurance, permission to take up space, permission to disappoint someone without collapsing, permission to tell the truth without packaging it so beautifully that nobody could possibly object. When you ask that question honestly, you start to see the hidden bargains you have been making. If I stay agreeable, maybe they will stay. If I keep proving my intentions, maybe they will not misunderstand me. If I become easier, smaller, quieter, brighter, less needy, more giving, less honest, more polished, maybe I can avoid rejection. But sweetheart, that bargain keeps asking for pieces of you, and it never says thank you. Releasing does not mean becoming reckless. It means stopping the internal auction where your worth is always up for bidding. One practical way to practice release is to delay your usual self-abandoning move by 10 minutes, just 10. If your habit is to send the extra reassurance text, wait 10 minutes. If your habit is to apologize for having normal needs, wait 10 minutes. If your habit is to explain your boundary until it sounds harmless enough to accept, wait 10 minutes. In that pause, ask yourself, what do I want more here? Approval or self-respect? Not because approval is evil, but because this question helps you see the crossroads. Another gentle practice is to stop volunteering evidence for your worth. Notice how often you rush to prove your goodness. You list your intentions. You explain how much you care. You justify why you felt hurt. You provide emotional footnotes. You hand in exhibits. You create an entire courtroom drama when all you really wanted was to be met with basic humanity. Release invites you to set the papers down. Not everyone deserves a closing argument. And then comes receive. This step is quiet, but it changes everything. Because once you stop chasing validation, there is often a strange, empty feeling at first. Many people expect immediate relief, but often what comes first is space. Space can feel unfamiliar, even lonely. If you spent years measuring yourself through other people's responses, not doing that can feel like standing in a room after a loud machine turns off. Suddenly, there is silence. Suddenly, there is you. Receive means learning to take in what this silence is offering instead of panicking and filling it with more pursuit. What is it offering? Dignity, clarity, energy, discernment, rest. The ability to notice who actually meets you without you having to audition. The ability to feel disappointment without turning it into self-erasure. The ability to let someone be limited without making yourself less. The ability to tell the truth and survive the fact that not everyone will celebrate it. To receive, start very small. When you choose not to over-explain, notice the steadiness that follows, even if it is tiny. When you tell the truth kindly and leave it there, notice the strength in that. When you let a delayed reply remain, just a delayed reply for 1 hour instead of turning it into a story about your value, notice what softens, When you realize that someone's inability to meet you clearly is information, not an indictment, notice how much energy returns to your body. This is receiving. Not grand affirmations shouted at the mirror while your soul quietly rolls its eyes. Just honest moments where you allow something new to land. You allow yourself to feel the difference between chasing and resting, between performing and belonging, between being wanted for your usefulness and being valued for your presence, between tension that feels familiar and peace that feels almost suspicious because it does not demand so much from you. And yes, sometimes peace does feel suspicious at first, because chaos has a way of disguising itself as chemistry. Uncertainty can masquerade as depth. Emotional hunger can make inconsistency feel important. You may have felt more activated with some people than with yourself, and activation is loud. It can seem meaningful simply because it is intense, but intensity is not always intimacy. Sometimes it is just your old wound getting excellent reception. That realization can save you years. There is another small practice that can help, especially on the days when your mind keeps trying to pull you back into old dependence. Ask yourself 3 grounding questions. What do I know for sure? What am I assuming? What am I abandoning in myself while I wait for their response? What do I know for sure brings you back to facts? What am I assuming reveals the story your fear is writing? What am I abandoning in myself brings you back to the cost? Maybe the fact is only that someone has not replied yet. The assumption is that you are unwanted. The abandonment is that you have stopped trusting your own day, your own body, your own value, until a message arrives. When you see it that clearly, the spell weakens. You can also practice telling the smallest clean truth available, just the clean one. I do not feel settled in this dynamic. I need a little time before I answer. That did not feel good to me. I am not able to keep discussing this in circles. I care, and I also need clarity. Clean truth is powerful because it does not beg. It does not decorate itself to avoid disapproval. It simply stands. And every time you let a clean truth stand without rushing to rescue it, you teach yourself that authenticity can survive contact with the world. This work also changes the way you listen to compliments and criticism. When you depend on validation, praise feels like rescue, and criticism feels like collapse. Everything becomes too loud, but as you return to yourself, both begin to find their right size. Praise can be enjoyed without becoming a drug. Criticism can be considered without becoming a verdict. You become more discerning, more rooted, more able to ask, is this useful? Is this true? Is this kind? Is this mine to carry? Sometimes the need for validation is strongest right before you grow, right before a boundary, right before a more honest choice, right before you stop participating in a pattern that has drained you for years. The old self gets scared there. It says, if you do this, they may not like you. And maybe some people will not. But not being liked in a moment of truth is very different from being unloved in your essence. One is a social discomfort, the other is an old fear. Learn to tell them apart, and you will stop surrendering your future to temporary reactions. Not performing goodness, not performing peace, not performing wisdom, simply becoming honest enough to stop worshiping other people's opinions. There is something sacred in that, because when you stop kneeling to approval, you can finally stand in presence. You can sense when something is aligned and when it is merely familiar. You can move with more integrity, and integrity has a quiet joy in it that validation can never replicate. Not because it makes life perfect, but because it helps you stop confusing emotional turbulence with love. Real connection does not usually require you to disappear to maintain it. Real care does not make you decode your worth every other day. Real respect does not need your constant proof of loyalty, softness, patience, or adjustability. When something is mutual, your body often knows there is more room to breathe, more room to be ordinary, more room to tell the truth without bracing for punishment. This is where your whole life starts to open. Not in one dramatic cinematic moment, more like a series of quieter liberations. You stop checking your phone with the same desperation. You stop rewriting texts to sound impossible to reject. You stop volunteering for emotional labor that was never yours. You stop mistaking self-betrayal for kindness. You stop calling your exhaustion love. You stop chasing people who only seem interested when you are easy. You begin to ask a different question. Not, how do I get them to validate me? But what becomes possible when I no longer need that from them to remain rooted in myself? That question changes the landscape. Because now your energy can go somewhere else. Into your work, into your body, into your creativity, into your friendships that actually nourish you, into your spiritual life, into your own inner listening, into the parts of you that went quiet while you were busy managing how you landed in other people's minds, into simple joys that were always available but hard to feel while your nervous system was standing guard at the door of approval. This shift is practical, not just poetic. You may begin to leave conversations earlier when they cost too much. You may answer more slowly. Instead of reactively, you may stop offering explanations where observation is enough. You may notice that some dynamics only worked when you were overfunctioning. You may feel grief about that, real grief, because when you stop chasing validation, some relationships reveal that they were built on your adaptation more than mutuality. That hurts, and it is still opening, because the loss is real, but so is the relief. The relief of no longer twisting yourself into emotional origami for people who call that closeness. The relief of recognizing that being understood by everyone is not the requirement for self-trust. The relief of letting someone misread you without immediately sprinting after their opinion like it contains your last drop of water. Let me give you permission here, very clearly. You are allowed to stop proving that you are worthy of love. You are allowed to stop performing calm while panic blooms underneath. You are allowed to stop earning basic tenderness through usefulness. You are allowed to stop making yourself easier to keep at the cost of being true. You are allowed to disappoint people who benefited from your self-abandonment. You are allowed to be misunderstood by those who only liked the edited version of you. You are allowed to tell the truth before you have found the prettiest packaging for it. You are allowed to have needs without presenting them like an apology. You are allowed to leave the stage of constant emotional proving. You are allowed to rest. And maybe that word lands harder than all the others. Rest. Because so much of validation seeking is hidden labor, invisible labor, the labor of anticipating, softening, filtering, adjusting, reading, managing, fixing, and rehearsing, the labor of trying to stay ahead of rejection by becoming impossible to reject. But no human being can live in that posture forever without losing contact with something essential. And the thing you lose first is often your own inner permission, your own plain, quiet sense of enoughness, your own right to exist without explanation. So receive this if it belongs to you. You do not have to audition for a place in life that is already yours. You do not have to collect gold stars from uncertain people to justify your own heart. You do not have to shapeshift every time the room changes. You do not have to monitor every expression like your soul depends on it. You do not have to be endlessly understandable to be deeply worthy. You do not have to stay trapped in the old devotion to being approved of. There is another way. It is slower, truer, less dramatic, sometimes less exciting to the wounded parts of you, but far more nourishing. It is the way of self-return, the way of open hands, the way of letting your worth be something you inhabit instead of something you negotiate. And here is what most people miss. When you stop needing validation, you do not become empty, you become available for deeper honesty, available for cleaner choices, available for relationships, where you are not cast as your most accommodating self, available for a life that is not built around emotional weather reports from everyone around you, available for joy that does not ask for permission first. This does not mean you will never feel the pull again. You will. There will still be moments when someone's distance stings, when misunderstanding aches, when you feel the old reflex to explain, prove, polish, or pursue. Healing is not the absence of that pull. Healing is recognizing it sooner, meeting it with more kindness, choosing differently a little faster, trusting that discomfort will not kill you, and that self-abandonment is not the price of connection. Some days you will do this beautifully. Some days you will send the extra text and then laugh softly and come back to yourself anyway. Some days you will over-explain and catch it halfway through and decide not to finish the performance. Some days you will still feel 12 years old inside a grown-up moment. Be gentle there. The goal is not to become someone who never wants reassurance. The goal is to become someone who can receive reassurance without becoming dependent on it. Someone who can feel disappointment without converting it into self-doubt. someone who can want connection deeply while still remaining loyal to their own center. That loyalty changes everything. It changes how you speak. It changes who feels familiar. It changes what you call love. It changes what you tolerate. It changes how your body feels when you walk away from what cannot meet you. It changes how available you are to your own life. And that is the opening this title points to. Not just a better mood, not just better boundaries in a narrow sense. A wider life, a less defended heart, a nervous system with more room in it, a self that no longer stands outside the door, waiting to be invited in by strangers, partners, family, co-workers, or old ghosts wearing new clothes. Your whole life opens because your energy returns. It returns from the chase. It returns from the performance. It returns from the courtroom. It returns from the waiting room. It returns from all the places you sent it in search of confirmation that you were already enough to begin with. So the next time you feel that old urge to reach outward before you reach inward, pause, return, release, receive, return to your body, your breath, your own honest experience. Release the bargain that says approval must come before peace. Receive the quiet dignity of belonging to yourself. Do that once and something shifts. Do that again and a path appears. Do that gently, imperfectly over time, and your life begins to feel like yours again. Not because everyone approves, not because nobody ever leaves, not because every relationship becomes easy, but because you are no longer leaving yourself first, and that changes the whole atmosphere of your existence. You see more clearly, you choose more carefully, you love more truthfully, you rest more deeply, you grieve what is not mutual without turning grief into proof that you are lacking. You begin to trust the kind of peace that does not perform. You begin to recognize that the most beautiful validation was never supposed to come from them in the first place. It was supposed to grow in you, quietly, steadily, lovingly, like a light you stop begging others to switch on. If something in you felt seen here, keep that close. Let it stay with you for a while. Let it soften the old reflex to chase. Let it remind you that self-respect is not hard, sharp, or cold. It is warm. It is clean. It is the feeling of not having to beg your way back into your own heart. And if this truth landed somewhere tender in you, stay with it. There is more wisdom waiting on the other side of the moment you stop asking the world to certify what your soul already knows. You are not here to earn your right to exist.